I'm excited about tonight. Tonight is what I believe is a pivotal point in our recovery, and figuring out who will be our sponsor and who will be a part of our accountability team. Are key pieces that I think in any recovery program will make you more successful. So as we dig in tonight, we're just going to look at Principle 4. Principle 4 says, openly examine and confess my hurts, hang-ups, and habits to myself, to God, and to someone I trust. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God, Matthew 5:8. Step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And then Lamentations 3:40, let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord. So if you've been with us since the beginning, we've been working through the principles, Principle 1, Principle 2, Principle 3, and tonight we start Principle 4, that we openly examine and confess my hang-ups, my hurts, hang-ups, and habits to myself, to God, and to someone I trust. So when last month we talked about the importance of having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, who we all believe is the ultimate sponsor in our life, because God does direct our steps in everything that we do. So last month we talked about the importance of having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, which you found when you made a decision to turn your life and your will over to the care of God. Now you will see the road to recovery is not meant to travel alone. We always talk about in Celebrate Recovery that we can never do life alone. We do it together, arm in arm, and we link up. So when we look at our recovery, we need to have three relationships. The first one is ultimately we need to have our relationship with God. Our relationship with God is, of course, the most important, that we are linked up with God and focused on Him. The second part is we need to have a relationship with our recovery group. Are you building relationships with people here tonight to get to know them? It's important to get to know them in a way that helps you in your recovery. And then lastly, are you able to find your sponsor and accountability team? I'm a firm believer in accountability team, not accountability partner. So tonight, I'm going to reference that we need to build an accountability team of people to come along us and help us out. Identifying a sponsored accountability team before you begin Principle 4 is important, because Principle 4 is all about being honest and truthful about our past. And I don't know about you, but that could be a little challenging for some of us. And then Proverbs 15:14, the discerning heart seeks knowledge, but the mouth of the fool feeds on folly. Our past can be heavy at times, so it's important that you don't do it alone. As we get to the point later on in our recovery, we're going to do this thing called an inventory, where we're going to share everything with somebody we trust. So if you don't have a sponsor, it's really hard to complete that inventory. So we're at a point where we got to make sure we have a sponsor, and we're going to have an accountability team. My challenge to you to do is to find a genuine mentor, coach, or sponsor, and an accountability team. So the lesson tonight, we're going to focus on 5 things. First one is, why do I need a sponsor and accountability partners? What's the big deal about, we always talk about, well, who's your sponsor? Who's your sponsor? Who's your sponsor? The second one is, what are the qualities of a sponsor? And then thirdly, what does a sponsor do? That's always a big question. Number 4, how do I find a sponsor and accountability partners? And number 5, what is the difference between a sponsor and accountability partner? There is a difference between those two types of people in your life. So the first one, it says, in the first fill-in, it says, why do I need a sponsor and accountability partner, or partners tonight? So it's important to understand that having a sponsor and accountability partners is biblical. Ecclesiastes 4:9-12 says, 2 are better than 1, because they have a good return for their labor. If either if then falls down, one can help each other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can be defended. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. And then a famous one that a lot of us know is Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. So it's important to understand that the Bible does talk about having a sponsor and having an accountability team, because when you are struggling, it's important to know, okay, who can I talk to? Who can I reach out to when I am struggling? So having a sponsor and accountability partners is a key part of your recovery program. I'm a firm believer. It is important to understand that you need to have both. You need to have your sponsor, which we will talk about what a sponsor is later, but also you need an accountability team. So like I said, it's also important to have more than one accountability partner. When I first got into recovery, someone once told me that they challenged me to first get my sponsor, which I did, and then he said, get at least 10 people that you can call. I said, why 10? He said, well, if you only have one sponsor and one accountability partner, what happens when you need to talk to someone and you call them and they both don't answer? What do you do? So I said, okay. So he says, if you have about 10 people you can call, as you start working down the list, somebody's going to answer. Or by the time you get down to the end of the list, someone that you called at the beginning will probably call you back. So my challenge to you is have at least 10 people. My challenge is try to find 10 people in your small group. Go to your small group and make sure that when you're there, you have everybody's phone number. If you don't, get it tonight, because it's important to have more than just one person as your accountability partner or sponsor. So I can honestly say that I have a sponsor, and I think at least 10, if not more. And so there are four key elements of a successful in your recovery program. The first one is maintaining your honest view of reality as you work each step. This one can be challenging for us. It says maintaining your honest view. Sometimes we don't want to have an honest view or reality. The second one is the second key element is to make your attendance at your recovery group meetings a priority in your schedule. This one was a hard one for me to begin, because many of you know my Uncle Rob. He was the one that started this Celebrate Recovery, and he told me at the beginning, he said, listen, if you're serious about your recovery, you will make it a priority, and you won't let anything come in between you and your recovery meetings. And he told me, which Ron mentioned tonight, it's okay to be selfish and tell people, hey, sorry, I can't be there because I need to be somewhere else. So my challenge to you is are your recovery meetings a priority in your life? And then the third one is maintaining your spiritual program with Jesus Christ through prayer, meditation on his word, and studying God's word. It's important you have that relationship with God. Are you growing your relationship with Christ? Are you building that relationship with Christ through prayer and meditation? And then the last one is, in our good recovery program, is get involved in service. Celebrate Recovery all over the world is known for developing leaders. We are a leadership factory. We're known for that. This CR is also known for producing a lot of great leaders that the churches just love. Many pastors love Celebrate Recovery because when we show up and we're ready to serve. So tonight, if you want to get involved in some type of service, talk to Pastor Ron, talk to your small group leader. I would say talk to Nick, but Nick's not here. Talk to your small group leader, talk to myself, talk to Ron. Say, hey, how can I get involved? And we will work on finding a place for you to serve. We challenge you to just get involved in service, because sometimes when you are in your head, the best thing to do to get out of your head is to start serving. So that's one of the best ways to start serving others. And most importantly, having a sponsor and accountability partners is the best guard against relapse. If you're doing your recovery by yourself and you're struggling, it's easy to relapse. But if you have a team of people that you can call and say, hey, I'm struggling, it's a higher chance of you staying sober. The people I've sponsored, I've said, I'd rather you call me and let us talk through what's going on versus, hey, calling me and say, hey, I relapsed. Well, why did you call? Let's talk through what's going on so that we don't go down that road. Then, most importantly, a sponsor and accountability partners can see your old dysfunctional, self-defeating patterns beginning to surface and point them out to you quickly. That's the nice thing about a sponsor is they'll call you out on your stuff. I remember Ron would always say, Pastor Ron would always say, you know I love you, right? That starts out with, okay, what did I do wrong this time? But I'm glad because I would rather be called out than not. So Ecclesiastes 7:5 tells us that it's better to heed the rebuke of a wise person than listen to the songs of fools. The trouble, though, for most of us is that we'd rather be ruined by our praise and avoid criticism. We don't like to be criticized or pointed out our negative stuff, and we'd rather focus on our praises. So, we know what is important, why we need to have a sponsor. So, what are the qualities? So, if you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't have a sponsor. So, most importantly, what should I look for? What are the qualities I should look for when selecting a sponsor? The first one is, does their walk match their talk? Are they living out the 8 principles and 12 steps in their daily life? Do you see that being walked out? Do you see them focusing on their relationship with the Lord? Are they? So that's important. They are an example. Are they an example worth imitating? Number 2, do they have a growing relationship with Jesus Christ? Are they growing in their walk? If they're not, that should be a red flag for you. And hopefully will be a red flag for their sponsor. Do you see the character of Christ developing in them? Number 3, do they express the desire to help others on the road to recovery? Do they want to help people? Some people, I've learned, don't want to help people, and they're just there. But a sponsor really wants to help other people experience the freedom that they are experiencing. Most importantly, codependents, listen up, please. There's a difference between helping others and fixing others. Let me say that again, codependents. There's a difference between helping others and fixing others. As a sponsor, it's not your job to fix them. Let me say that again. It's not your job to fix them. It's your job to help them along the process. Not fix them, help them along the process. Number 4, it says, do they show compassion, care, and hope, but not pity? Do they always support your pity parties in small group? That should be a red flag. The person should have empathy, keyword empathy, and not sympathy. They just shouldn't feel bad for you all the time. They should say, you know what, I feel your pain. I understand what you're going through, but let's talk about how we get through it. Number 5, are they a good listener? Do you feel like you can talk to them? Do they sit and listen to your problems? Are they engaged in listening to you in a way that you feel like you're being heard? Do you sense that the honesty, they're honest and they care about you with what you have to say? Number 6, are they strong enough to confront your denial or procrastination? Or like I like to say, will they call you out on your stuff? When they see that you've gone off-road on your recovery, do they call you out and say, hey, what are you doing? I see this old habit developing. I see this old trait starting to rise again. I thought we dealt with this. Why are we going back this way? So they're willing to call you out on your stuff. If you have a sponsor who doesn't call you out on anything, they're not doing their job as a sponsor. Their job is to help you improve, not just say, okay, yeah, no, and not call you out on things that they see that are not healthy. Number 7, do they offer suggestions? A lot of times, I would get off track in my beginning of my recovery, and I go, well, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, and that. My sponsor said, hold on. You need to slow down, and you need to stop, and we need to focus on what we can do today, not what we need to do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steps down the road. So a good sponsor can take an objective view and offer suggestions. They should not give orders, saying, if they say, this is what you have to do, no. They might say, this is what I think it would be a good idea for you to do, but they don't give you orders. They see things that you might not think about. I'm sponsoring one guy, and he came with me with about something he wanted to do, and I said, well, do you think about this? And he looked at me and goes, no. I said, well, you might want to think about doing this first before you make that decision. And he called me back and said, you know what, brother, you're absolutely right. I didn't think about that, and once I made that decision, it caused me to make a different decision, so thank you. So a sponsor is someone that can look at what's going on objectively and and can give you suggestions. Do they share their own current struggles with you or with others? Are they being vulnerable like themselves? Are they talking about their own struggles that you can relate to? Are they willing to open up and be vulnerable about their own struggles? I don't know about you, but I always want a sponsor that someone says, I'm working the steps, not I've worked the steps. My sponsors always said, I'm working the steps. These are the steps I'm working on and trying to get better. So my challenge to you is when it comes to a sponsor, you need someone that says, I'm working the steps. And here's what I'm struggling with. And a good sponsee relationship, a lot of times the sponsee can say, hey, you know what, I relate to that. Or a sponsor might say, hey, I can relate to what you're sharing. Let me show you how I did it, working these steps as a suggestion. So we've talked about what are the qualities. So let's talk about what is the role of the sponsor. The most important role of the sponsor is to continually pointing you to Jesus as your higher power. Amen. That's the most important thing. At the beginning of my recovery, I would get off track a lot of times because I would have 1,000 questions and would go to 1,000 different directions. And a lot of times I'd get worked up, and my sponsor said, okay, hold on, you know what? Stop. You need to come back to Jesus. Let's pray, and let's ask God to direct your next step. And so the number one role is always, does your sponsor bring you back to Jesus? Because we know he's the ultimate sponsor. Number 2, they can be there to discuss issues in detail that are too personal or would take too much time in a meeting. I'm a firm believer when you get to the point where you do an inventory, that you do it with a sponsor. CR says you can do it with an accountability partner, but a sponsor is good because when you get later down the road, you're going to get to a point where you're going to be challenged to make some amends to different people, and they can guide you through that process because some of those amends at that particular current time could not be safe for you or for that other person. Or they might say, hey, you know what, why don't you hold off for a little bit, let's do this instead, or yeah, go ahead, that's a good amends. Or sometimes they might say, hey, you can make that amends, but how about I come with you just so I can be a support as well. So their job is to be there to understand your inventory so that they can help you, guide you through the process of making amends and just healing through the recovery process. Third, they're available in times of crisis or potential relapse. When you call your sponsor, do they actually pick up the phone? Are they available? Do they make time for you? At the beginning of my recovery, my sponsor and I, we met every week for about an hour to hour and a half in the morning, and just talking through some of the basic steps of recovery. Does your sponsor make time for you? Or if you call them or reach out all the time and they don't answer or they don't call you back, maybe it's time to reevaluate who your sponsor is. Like I've said before, I would rather someone call me if they're struggling so we could talk it out versus they call me later and say, hey, I've relapsed. Number 4, they serve as a sounding board by providing an objective point of view. Like I said, they're very important. Sponsor helps you think about the things you might not thought of. This is important when we get to Principle 6, when they are dealing with the sensitive area of making amends and offering forgiveness. You need a good sounding board. And another example of my sponsor, thank you, was that on certain amends, he's like, no, we're not going to make that amends yet, but to make amends, this is what you're going to do, how you can do it. And I never thought of it that way because I wanted to be able to say, I'm sorry, but they're like, have you thought about this? Let's do it this way. And I'm like, oh, I never thought about it. Number 5, they encourage you to work the principles at your own speed. It's not 1, 2, skip a few, done. A lot of times a sponsor can say, hey, you know what, you're going too fast, you need to slow down. You think you're at step 6, but you know what, you're at step 4. Reality. We need to slow your process down. The steps don't happen overnight. It takes time, like we said. Recovery is a marathon. I've always learned the day we are fully recovered is the day we're in front of Jesus. That's when we've, quote unquote, graduated, is the day we're in front of Jesus, where he says, good and faithful servant. Number 6, most important, they attempt to model the lifestyle that results from working the 8 principles. Their job is to show you how to work the steps as an example. Are they that example? And then number 7, a sponsor can resign their position as your sponsor, or you as a sponsee can fire your sponsor. If you feel like your sponsor's not what you need, you can go ahead and fire them and switch sponsors. On a personal note, I've been fired, and I've actually resigned from being someone's sponsor because we just weren't the right match, and it was okay. And we found them a better match, and they're doing successful because of the better match. So it's okay for you to say, hey, you know what, we're not a right fit, but let's find someone else. Or if you're a sponsee and say, hey, you know what, this is just not working, it's okay to say then, I'm going to fire my sponsor and find someone else. So next part is, how do I find a sponsor? First and foremost, the person must be the same sex as you. Men with men, women with women. No exceptions. And number 2, can they relate to your story? Can you relate to their story? How do I find a sponsor? Also, look at small group. When they're sharing, can you relate to their shares? Like they're talking about your life. It's happened a few times where I've told people, hey, quit sharing my story because we're able to relate to that. Also, if there's other CR events, come to those and sit with people and talk with people to get to know them. And God will reveal to you who that be. But most importantly, that you need to pray and ask God. You need to pray and ask God to lead you to that sponsor of his choosing, that he knows who will be best for you. Once again, it's the same sex, but also too, if you do ask a person to sponsor you and they do say no, don't take it personal. Some of us are sponsoring 4 or 5 people. They might not have the time to pour into you to make it a great relationship. Or they might be just too busy in their own personal life. Don't get discouraged. Go ask someone else. Like we said, the most important thing is to talk to God about it. Lastly, I want to talk to you guys about what's the difference between a sponsor and accountability partner. And the next slide, I think, this really helps us really understand the difference. A sponsor, first and foremost, is they completed a SNP study. The second one is that this person meets the 7 recommendations that are talked about in the role of a sponsor. And think of a sponsor if you played sports as a coach. They're the ones calling the plays, offering you suggestions on what to do. Versus an accountability partner is someone that is on the field with you. They're not your sponsor, but they also have the same struggles, and you can relate to their story. And they've agreed to help you. You guys have agreed to help each other out. They can hold you accountable. They can hold you accountable in certain areas of recovery. So, one of my brothers, like I said before, I struggle with food, and I've talked to him and said, "Hey, can you hold me accountable with my struggle with food?" And he said, "Well, as long as you do the same thing for me." And so we've become accountability partners, and we've been able to spend time talking about our struggles with food. The accountability partner or group accountability partners serve as the team of accountability, whereas, like we said, the sponsor is the coach. My challenge to you tonight is to start building your accountability team and start praying about finding a sponsor. You won't find a sponsor unless you ask. And like I said before, don't be afraid if they say no. It's because it means that you have someone else that you can find that's going to be better for you. I want to end tonight with a story I heard on a TV show what I think really summarizes a sponsor. There was this guy walking down the street, and he fell into a hole. And as he was falling in the hole, he was looking up, and he was screaming, "Help, help, help." And a pastor walked by and said, "Pastor, can you help me?" So he wrote him a prayer, threw it in the hole. Doctor walked by, said, "Doctor, can you help me?" He wrote him a prescription, threw it in the hole. His friend walked by, jumps in the hole with him. And he's like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "We're both stuck now." He goes, "Yeah, we might be stuck, but I was here before, and I know the way out." So a sponsor really can relate to the hole that you've dug yourself into. And through the leading of Jesus Christ and the guidance of a sponsor, you can get let out of that hole. So with that, thank you guys very much.